What's up, Tweeners? Welcome back to another Tweener tennis video today here on the channel. And today we have a very special guest. We have Alex Gruskin from Cracked Rackets to talk about the NCAA tennis championships that happened in Orlando, Florida. We recap the singles individual titles, the team titles, everything that you need to know we talked about right here. What athletes are going to go pro in their stardom careers at their universities, which ones are going to be returning, and more like that. We talk a little bit everything college tennis here on this episode. It's a little bit long, but I hope you guys do enjoy. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers this year, so make sure you hit that like button as well as making sure you subscribe to Tweener Tennis, so that way more people in the tennis world can see this. And as always, hope you guys enjoy the video. Thanks, guys.
But Gruskin, thank you so much for joining us today. This is always a pleasure. Me and Gruskin go back to 2018.
That sounds about right. I like to think we were brothers at birth separated, but that feels about right.
That sounds about right. But the first time we met in person was 2018. So, and the king of college tennis, I would have to say, because there's no one else out there that covers college tennis as much as this guy, and just in-depth analysis on everything, and was at the NCAA championships in Orlando, Florida. What was that like, Gruskin, besides getting no sleep?
Well, it was really, really hot. It was funny. I had an interaction with Florida State head coach Jennifer Hyde. I'm name dropping right off the bat. And
nice
as always, a pleasure to see you, my friend. Appreciate you having me. Crazy to think how much has changed since that 2018 Cleveland Challenger. But
really
she's asking me, she's like, Alex, how are you doing? Like, everything well? I was like, Coach, I think I've been leaking for 2 weeks straight. It's like all of my pores are open. Like, I've legitimately not stopped sweating. No, her team member started laughing. She's like, Alex, that was not what I was asking for at all. I was like, oh, sorry. Like, the filter's gone, but it was awesome. And in particular, I think it was about 2 days into the team event that the USTA made the decision to open everything up and have a full capacity crowd. And I'm sure we'll talk about it momentarily, but that crowd made the difference in the final. And it was just absolutely delightful to have the opportunity to be there in person, to absorb that, to hear the rumors on the ground. I am 90% sure that I got a coach contract extension by some of the conversations I was having. But yeah, no, beyond that, it was exceptional.
How would you describe having fans back? Because I think that was one of the main things that everyone was talking about, at least during the broadcasting, what you were doing with the Tennis One app. Talk about how the fans, and you just briefly said it, how the fans really did make a difference back being in college tennis.
Well, I think college tennis fans matter more than anything, and you can see the Michigan M on my chest. That's where my love of college tennis comes from. I always got to be on brand here.
You gotta plug away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was great because people are like, oh, you're Adam Steinberg, head coach of the Michigan men's tennis guy. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly correct. I am his guy. But no, I think in college tennis more than anywhere else, French Open, Wimbledon, Grand Slams, Masters, regardless, fans can make a difference in college tennis, and partisanship is encouraged, right? If you are a Michigan fan, or in this case, if you're a Florida fan, you are going to be, and very much can be, the difference maker. And I think we saw it in particular in the final, like with all due respect to the Florida men's tennis team, who were outstanding, who in a vacuum could have absolutely won the title on a neutral
100%.
court. But they dropped doubles in 3 first sets. And, the fans, I love Charlie Broom, love him to death, 5 singles for Baylor. They convinced Charlie that his forehand was broken, and it actually made a difference. And just that doesn't happen in other stages of tennis. That's why it's such a college tennis is so special. And for the record, Matt Stakoyak, Chris Haliors, I hope you heard that. I am the king of college tennis. But no, it absolutely, yeah, I appreciate that. But it makes all the difference.
It's crazy to me going from almost not having a season to a very limited regional section with the ITAs, very limited into how many were allowed. I think how many were allowed for the ITAs? 16?
8 for the indoors.
8 for the indoors. And it just seemed to me like there was not going to be an NCAA championship, or at least they couldn't have it in the original spot that they wanted to. They kind of just made it into that bubble environment that World Team Tennis has made, that New York made. And it's crazy to me how they were able to pull it off, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, 100%. And, I think that was the consensus on the grounds as well. Is if you would have told anyone at the beginning of the season that we would have had a full field of 16 teams make the Sweet 16 and we would have gotten to play that full event in Orlando, they would have laughed at you. I would have laughed at you for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But they ended up being able to do it. And that's a testament to so many people at the ITA and, all the teams, all of the players in particular who, the sacrifices they had to make. There were Saturdays where their coaches were like, please do not go out. And even if they did go out, they did it responsibly, which is all we can ask of these players, these coaches. So it's a huge shout out to all of them that we even got to this stage.
I 100% agree. Now I want to get into the matches that happened in Orlando. Besides the finals, pick one match for the women's and men's, which was the best one to watch besides the championships.
Oh, man, this is tough. That's a great question. Are we talking team or individuals? Because I think I have an answer for both.
Team first, because then I want to talk about the individuals later.
Perfect. I would say I think the match that caught everyone's attention that set tennis Twitter off as well was that UCLA Pepperdine women's match. I mean, that match had everything. You had a dramatic tiebreaker with Leahy and Czar coming back from 6-2 down against Jada Hart and Abby Forbes. And I mean, I know for a fact, because I would feel the same way, to her dying day, Jada Hart will remember the volley she had on top of the net to put that doubles point away that she missed in the net. And that was the difference in that match. It was a 4-3 slugfest. You had two of the four teams, and we had a bunch of super teams this season, but on the women's side in particular, North Carolina, Pepperdine, UCLA, and then obviously Texas, they were just better than everyone else. And it wasn't particularly close. And for Pepperdine to beat Stanford in the round of 32, then crushed my Michigan Wolverines in the round of 16, which hurt my, and Per Nilsson is trolling me after the match, their head coach, which we're not even going to talk about right now. But then go 4-3 over UCLA, 4-3 over North Carolina, that 4-3 match against Texas. I guess my answer is just all things Pepperdine. Yeah. But that UCLA match in particular, it came down to the wire, and it just felt like all eyes had turned to that match, that it caught the imagination, attention of everyone in the tennis Twitter universe. And if you don't mind me flipping things on you because you weren't on site, did you feel that way as well? Because I felt like that was the one that set everything off.
Honestly, that was the first match that I turned on, was the UCLA and Pepperdine match. Because for me, I was away. I was at my sister's graduation for college, and when
also
I was
tough to you, my friend.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It was just one of those things where if you could watch a perfect college match that sums up like what we expect in that kind of environment of college athletics, that's what you imagine. The comebacks, everything that you can imagine just summed into one. I think that was the perfect one for me, at least for the women. For the men though, who would you pick? Because I think the semifinal was probably my favorite.
That's a really good choice. And I mean, it's funny because at this point, like, they're all blended together.
I know they all look the same.
Yeah, no, I'm just like thinking in my head, like, all right, like, honest to God, watching Tennessee, Arizona, which was one of the matches I called, like, that match, round of 16, was sneaky exceptional. It came down to the number one singles fight between Walton and Strom. Like, that match was really, really good. And as you move throughout the event, I mean, UNC beating Georgia right off the bat, that was one of those inflection points in the tournament. That was a really, really good match. But then, I mean, Texas USC, that's the one for me that I like. USC, those are my guys. And I mean, Bradley Fry versus Cleve Harper, the quality of play was so high as well, but the energy level in the crowd. I mean, the final obviously takes the cake because we had 500 screaming Gator fans, but the one nuts. And I don't want to get yelled at, but like, God, I hope everyone in that crowd was vaccinated, or God, I hope no one had COVID, because that was like 2 seconds away from being a super spreader event. And I'm I'm vaccinated, so it's not an issue for me.
Same.
Shout out to us. But I mean, Texas USC, it just had everything. And it was a rematch from earlier in the season that went 4-3. It was perfect.
What'd you think of this USC versus Virginia match? Was that what did you think? Because that paper-wise, USC was 7 spots below Virginia, and they beat them 4-2?
No, it was a 5-12 matchup. And one of my takeaways from Orlando is experience still matters. It's funny because we see Iga and all of these next geners just ripping their way through the tour, but in a college tennis environment, that's just not the case. And like, with all due respect, Jeffrey von den Schulenburg blinked. Like, he did not play well in Orlando the entire time. The number 2 singles players for Virginia. I know you know that, but just the context for the listeners.
For sure.
And, Chris Rodesh, I mean, him versus Dostanich was just, it was delightful. And then you had Kucherman versus Soderlund on court number 1. But it just felt like the moment USC took that doubles point, like, it got in the freshman's head. Yeah. And regardless of the environment, that match was delightful. And I will say to this, I will say it, it'll be a take I'm going to hold on to for a while.
Yeah.
Had USC beaten Texas, I actually think they were going to beat Florida. Like, I really do think they were the one team best positioned to do it, just because you had the doubles point, which they were better. I mean, Florida dropped doubles in the final, but then, it would have been a semi, not a final. So the crowd wouldn't have been as vociferous. And then I just think match calculus wise, USC had the recipe to beat that Florida team, perhaps better than any non-Baylor team. But again, that match happened in front of 500 people. You're absolutely right to point to that match. Like, USC, you play that NCAA tournament out 10 times, I think they win 1 or 2 titles.
Yeah. It's just crazy to me because Florida only dropped 1 match every time they lost one. Every time they won, it was 4-0 or 4-1. Not one of their singles, essentially, they were just flawless.
No, they were incredible.
It's crazy. And there's no reason why that their number 1 didn't deserve to win the title.
No,
for individuals.
The scariest part is that they bring back everyone next season. And it's like, I mean, Blaze Bicknell's never lost a college singles match. Josh Goodyear this year was undefeated at the number 6 singles position. For him to beat Spencer Furman the way he did at the final, was silly. And it's like, someone compared Ben Shelton to Denis Shapovalov, and they were dead serious when they did it, Phil. And I cannot tell you how hard I was laughing. I was like, all right, dude. Like, no, because, like, I mean, he's played 5 singles in Division I college tennis. Denis Shapovalov is a top 20. Like, he was like, I'm telling you, this guy is Denis Shapovalov. And I suppose to scale, like, that's correct. And don't get me wrong, Shelton's excellent, and he's got high upside. You see the power, you see the athleticism, but, like, I mean, that speaks to the crowd. They were drinking the Kool-Aid. It was delightful.
And kind of transitioning into those individuals, with Sam winning the individual titles for the men, we'll start with the men. He looks so good. Mm-hmm. Have you talked to him about going pro?
I have. So, you know what his most amazing accomplishment is? And I think I feel like you're going to get this perhaps more than anyone else. I walk into, because we were staying at the same hotel during the individual event, and
nice flex.
I don't need, yeah.
Nice flex.
You. I was going to say, do you want to hear about my hotel switch that I had to do?
Must be nice.
Hey, shout out to Tennis One. They were truly awesome. But no, we're staying at the same hotel, and I walk into the lobby for breakfast. And by the way, if I never have to eat powdered eggs and that little round turkey sausage disc again, I will be freaking happy about that fact. But Sam's drinking milk before his match, and we're about to play in 90-degree heat. And I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? Like, how confident are you if you're able to drink milk before playing in that sort of temperature? And that just speaks to the fact, like, Dickie B was in the crowd, so I'm going to steal his phrase. He's a primetime performer. He is a PTP. There's no denying that. I think the better the level of tennis, the better Sam Riffice plays. And to answer the question, he loves Florida. Loves the University of Florida. It's, of course, located pretty close to his girlfriend, Cece Bellis, who I'm sure he likes having that ability to. Yeah, a little power couple.
Fun.
There were a couple of flex power couples. Yeah, no, very fun. I agree. And
no idea that happened.
No, I think they've been dating for like 7 years, on and off, something like. I look. We'll save that for
a different topic. We're not TMZ here. We're not TMZ. We don't have to have our celebrity couples segment. We can wait for another day.
There's a line of argument that says there was a brief split up in 2017 after Cece called the national championship for the Michigan tennis on campus team repped by your boys because she was just in love with that senior captain. No, that was a joke. That was a joke. I love you, Sam. I love you, Cece. And honestly, I would make that joke.
I'm getting canceled for this thing.
But in terms of I mean, his pro upside, it's there. Like, you talk to a guy like Mike Cation, he on and on, he'd be like, why is Sam Riff playing 2 singles for the Gators? And the truth is, because Coach Shelton could get away with it. That's why you do it. But the answer to me is, how does this summer go? If he makes a couple runs in challengers, which he'll certainly get wild cards to now, if he wins a match, if he wins 2 matches at the U.S. Open, you can kiss him goodbye, because you just can't turn down that sort of prize money.
Do you think is he getting a wild card into the U.S. Open?
100%. There's not a doubt in my mind. First U.S. champs since 2017. Both he and Navarro are getting wild cards.
Navarro's a guarantee at this point. When I was covering Charleston and she went on that run, there was no doubt in my mind she was going to go pro. But from her perspective, she's just taking it one day at a time. But I think with what you just said, it makes sense if they have that success. And Navarro's a freshman, right?
Yeah, it's a joke. It's stupid good.
It's stupid good.
And, I mean, look, let's be clear. Emma Navarro's peer group are not Stella Perez-Somariba and Sarah Davatilla and the players in college. Her peer group is Katie McNally, Coco Gauff, Whitney Osigwe, Ann Lee, all of the players who are already out there having success on the WTA. Yeah, exactly. That's where she believes she belongs. And not to ignore the Sam question, because I think it's a little bit – I just think for Sam, the results have to be there. He's too comfortable in Gainesville, and his development is clearly going well, that unless the ranking is there and the playing opportunities are there, like, would you want to slog it out at 15Ks for the next 6 months, or would you want to go back to Gainesville? Exactly. And so that the Sam question is a little bit different than Emma, just because I think, I mean, it helps to be a Navarro, right? Like, she's getting into every Charleston event. I'm ready to report that right now, that Emma Navarro has gotten a wild card into the 2022 Charleston Open, like Volvo Car Open, right? We can report that right now.
Well, why not? It's nothing against her. It's nothing against.
Yeah, that's not to be rude. I agree.
It's just how it is. If she's going to be still at the University of Virginia, she will get a wild card into the event, because that is allowed now with college.
And it's
tennis.
her family's event. It's like, if your parents own the event, and again, this is not ripping on Emma Navarro. It's not her fault that her family owns the event, but they own the event. And like,
she plays good tennis, and she actually won, and she's good at sports. So why not give it to her?
100,000% agree with you. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so that's why just the cases are so different, because knowing you can get into a WTA 250, knowing you can get into the 100Ks they host there as well, Sam doesn't have that luxury of that, like, of that guarantee, I guess is the way of putting it. And that's why I think it's a little bit more up in the air. But if you're asking me, is the level there? Yes, I do think it is, because I think the better the competition, the better the Sam Riff is. And that proved itself in this NCAA tournament.
And besides Sam, there's a couple other players that really stood out to me. Liam Drexel from Kentucky has to be mentioned. Galarno.
Can I do 2 seconds on him?
Yes, please.
I just say I didn't want to cut you off, because I could do it on Lexi as well. Drexel was the player for me, where it's just like beforehand, I was I don't want to say doubting. I just wasn't that impressed, because I don't think
during the regular season. I agree. During the regular season,
you watch him play, and it's like, you don't see the big serve, although then at this NCAA tournament, you watch him enough, and he hits like 625-mile-per-hour bombs per match, and you're like, where has that been?
Exactly.
And just the way he competes, I mean, he may get punched in the face at the challenger level, because we're talking about a guy who won the first set in the quarterfinals against Gabriel DeCamps, lifted his arms, dropped his racket as though he had won Wimbledon, and it's like, dude, that was the first set. And that flies in a college environment, but
If he
go do
does
that at the
in
15K in Tunisia. Yeah, like
someone's gonna kick him in the face.
exactly.
But we see that arrogance at this level, and that can you can get away with that. You can get away with a
100%.
lot of things in terms of, I want to say arrogance, but
chicanery is the word I like to use. It's just like a little foolishness.
Yes, and you can get away with it here. But if you take that into the pro setting, no one in that locker room will tolerate you if you do that. And I understand how much energy you put into these celebrations, but sometimes it's a little bit too much. From a college environment to a tour environment, those just don't mix at all. And I hate doing this. I'm not going to do that again.
No, completely agree with you. I would say, and the word on the street is that barring him winning 2-3 challenger titles, which like it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I don't think it's going to happen, that he'll be back to compete for at least one more spring semester. He just loves it too much, fits like a hand in a glove. And so that would make sense to me. But he was a guy, just the way he competes, you can't fake that. And he's got that it factor. And so I do see a pro career for him. Yeah.
And then the next one has to be Alexi from NC State. You want to jump on in on that?
I mean, Alex's stick together, G's stick together, Alexi Galarneau, Alex Gruskin. I'm going to be on the bandwagon. Thank you. You know, it took me a while to put that together. I'm going to stay on his – I mean, it was funny. I was talking to him flex, sorry. I was talking to him on the grounds.
Wow.
And yeah. I do miss you. It's good to see your face. Let me just say. I think one of the problems in our society is men have forgotten how to show affection for each other. And I hope people are aware we are very fond of one another. But yeah, anyways. Yeah. Not to make you uncomfortable. Anyways, Alexi Galarneau. I was talking to him on the grounds. Flex. He goes, I'm 23 out in Little Rock right now. 23 out meaning in terms of the entry list. He's like, but I think I'm going to go because if I can get in, I think I can get into qualifying and I think I can qualify from there. And that's exactly what he did. He qualified for the main draw in Little Rock, and talking to some other people, they all just say, yeah, the guy's got it as well. He's got the poise where he would be fine playing 6 weeks in a row in some random country. And he would be fine taking a couple of losses in back-to-back events and not getting down on himself. And look, he's someone who trained with that FAA, Shapovalov generation. Draxel's in there as well as Ben Seguin's in there as well. It's a really talented Canadian group. And his game is also just so smooth. Like, right, in terms of the tennis, he makes everything look so easy.
And for me, I'm looking at his results right now. He's in the round of 16. He's supposed to play JC Aragone today, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, and so my turn to flex. When I was his hitting partner in Houston 2 years ago when he played Chilich, he has such a good head on his shoulders, which you don't see at the college game at all. And I think that's his maturity and what Liam doesn't do. He's able to differentiate college and pro level mental toughness. Like, you don't have to show it at the pro level, but you have to show it at the college level. Like, you have to show that you're winning. You have to show that you have that ability to beat you, which Alexi has in both standards, in my opinion.
No, I 100% agree with you. I also just feel like the harder the pace of the ball of his opponent, he's not going to get overwhelmed. I think fundamentally his strokes are going to hold up. Exactly. And how high is his upside?
We don't know.
That's a good question. Top 75, maybe. Do I think he gets like a top 20 player? No, I'm not saying that. I'm rooting for him to do so. But I just think the game comes so easy to him, and he seems to really want to. Like, I know that sounds stupid. You'd think every pro wants to succeed. Like, a lot of pros have other stuff on their mind. Yeah. He does not. He is goal-oriented. It's the tennis first. Everything else will come later, and that's just a quality you can't fake.
I 100% agree, and I want to get to two more names. I'm going to save Blumberg for last because that's just a guarantee. Where is he? From Illinois.
Oh, Kovacevic?
Yes. Kovacevic. What do you
think?
Both
of these names, If I was to bet the house, I'm going to get in trouble, but it'll be on those two, Kovacevic and Blumberg. I've said this before on the pod, but Cracked Rackets at Great Chat Pod at Mini Break Pod. There it is.
You couldn't tell from the background that's behind them.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, it's built in at this point.
It's fine.
But I had a pro tell me that the way Alex Kovacevic hits his cross-court forehand, they were like, what is this guy still doing in college? Just the way he's able to pull that ball. It's a special trait, and he plays on his terms. And sometimes he gets a little hit happy. He would be the first to admit that he needs to work on the off-speed stuff, but you can't fake the pro power. You can't fake the ability to just win when you play your best, regardless of what the opponent does. And he has that trait. Case in point, round of 16 NCAAs, he rolls his ankle 2-all against Alexei Galarno, and he's just like, you know what? I need to swing. Like, I need to swing freely. I need to go for things early in the rally. He ends up winning the match 6-1 in the third. Like, it was super impressive from him, and just there's a decisiveness about him you can't fake. And if you don't mind me getting right into it, ditto for Will. Like, Will's serve and forehand have been ready for the pro game since he stepped on Chapel Hill's campus in 2017. And he's a guy who he's a 98er. Yeah, it's like Tiafoe, Mo, Kozlov. I mean, JJ Wolf's part of that crew. I'm missing someone here. There's another 98er. Tiafoe, Mo, Kozlov, JJ Wolf, Ulysses Blanche is another 1998er. And Blumberg. Like, that's a crew.
Was Mo a part of that?
Yes, yes. And so that's just the crew. Like, they have been that good forever. Now, I agree with Will. It's really hard to lead Chapel Hill. Like, you can't imagine a better 5 years than the 5 years he has had.
He's 10-time All-American.
Yeah, exactly, which will never be repeated. And It's like, that matters. That means something. And I just think for him, it's how badly does he want it? Like, if he is willing to suffer, go 15 Ks for 6 weeks in a row, that's the big question. And can his body stay healthy? Yes, and if those two answers are yes, he's got the highest upside of anyone who's in college tennis this year.
This is a very broad question, but for me, before we get to the women, is Will a top 5 greatest college tennis player of all time?
Yes. Okay. I'm so happy you asked that question. Yes, absolutely. Because when you tell the story of 2017 through 2021, even though they only won one national indoor title,
which is shocking.
I agree with you. The first name you will mention is Will Blumberg. Like, you cannot tell the story of the past 5 years of college tennis without saying Will Blumberg. Now, top 5 of all time, that might be a stretch because Johnson, DeVarman, I'm sure someone will be like, well, what about Arthur Ashe and like Jimmy Connors? All right, like, relax.
That's not our generation.
But of this era, right? Of this era.
We have to say our open era, I would say, right? For college. Because
exactly.
It's such a different environment and such a different way of playing tennis.
100%.
When Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe, Ashe, all of them played.
100%.
Different generation.
Of the 2010s, he's one of the guys. He's absolutely one of the 5 guys. You put him on the same plane as a Petros Sissokos, as a Mikhail Torpegard, maybe even a bump above Torp. Like, yes, I think he belongs there. He made an individual final. He's a 10-time freaking All-American. Will Blumberg belongs in college tennis history. 2 more names just quickly, because I would be remiss if I didn't say them. Daniel Kucherman, guy's a stud. He's a little bit on the older side, but I think he's going to get into the top 200 within the first 12 months of his pro career. Wow. The other one, Adrian Boyton. Cannot tell you how many conversations people had. Baylor #1 singles player.
Oh, that's
I call it the Sonic Boom group, where it's just like the ball comes off their racket. Rublev, FAA, like these guys are like, what is that? Yeah, you're like, what is that sound I hear? He belongs in that conversation.
Yes, I 100% agree. And now let's get to the women really quick. Besides Navarro, who else do you see? Because I think the other name that's very apparent is Perez from Miami, not only as an individual champion, but will she go pro? I think she will. I think it's a guarantee, Rob. It's a guarantee.
Yeah, 100%. She is. I mean, she's done with it. Yeah.
She's done with school too.
Yes, she's going to give it a go, and her grades are excellent. Not that I've seen the transcript. I wish I had people leaking me transcripts. We're not
weird.
TMZ.
When you start saying things about their like academic career, I'm like, how deep are you in?
Too deep, my friend, too deep. Well, the problem is I got to race Parsa. So, like, Parsa's seen what she did in Calc 101, her freshman semester. So it's like, well, if he's seen it, I got to see it.
That's weird.
But, yeah, it is weird. But my girl EPS, she can – I just – again, everything I said in terms of, the way they compete, that it applies to her as well. She's the Alexi of the women's side, where it's just like, is there an overwhelming skill? No, except for the way she competes. She's just going to be so good week in, week out.
Her, Navarro, shout out to another 203 rep, Anna Rogers. She's going to give it a go. She told me that she was going to try going pro recently. So
I think her and Smith could be a damn good doubles team.
That's what I'm saying.
A lot of length there,
I
a lot
could
of
see her
power.
as a Katie McNally. I could see her playing in that kind of realm.
Can I give you another comp for them?
Yeah.
Stefani and Carter. Louisa Stefani, former Pepperdine. Yeah.
Pro together. And Anna, I know you will watch this. They can do it. I honestly think from seeing their progression, having the most doubles wins for NC State history, having the ability to be an All-American, having the ability, their team was ranked, 2 in the nation at one point?
They were the best team for various parts of the past 2 seasons in college.
Exactly.
Tennis.
So why not try it and see how – I know no one wants to go pro in doubles, but if you want to – it's apparent. It's very true, at least from what I've heard.
No, there's not a lot of sex appeal there. Let's just be honest.
Yes, it's true. But if you want to go pro and be really good at it, I think you could do it. I think she could do it with Smith. So it's her – Perez, Navarro, Forbes.
100,000%. And Abby Forbes may have as high of an upside as anyone in the game, and that includes Emma Navarro, it takes you 2 seconds of watching the Navarro forehand, takes you 2 seconds of watching Abby Forbes hit out of her corners, where you're just like, oh my gosh, like this girl's got it.
Yeah, I think Stearns as well.
That's another. I'd pick a name out of the hat for the Texas players, and it's like I could make a case on the right day.
Chu as well. She did so well. Her
100%.
Her. Who else am I? I'm looking at the singles individual.
Sarah Davatella. It's not conventional, but that
Alexa
indoor Michigan
Knoll.
tennis. Yeah. Oh, that's another good one. Alexa Graham. I don't know if but again, AGs stick together. She's got the competitive spirit where it's like, what would suck is playing her the third week consecutively in a quarterfinal because she's just never going away.
I know.
I'm trying to think. There's got to be some West Coast players we're missing.
Jen from Oregon.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, she's so young too.
Yeah,
how about Alicia Bolton, who's got that power quality for UCLA, who number 3 singles player for them, wasn't in the singles this year because of injury, but talk about her and Jada Hart could be as good as one. Oh, duh. That's on us for forgetting.
I'm just going through the singles draw right now.
Katarina Jokic is going to sleepwalk her way into the top 300. That's how confident I am in her game. I think she's that legit. It just works. And I think her game's going to be even better in the pro circuit.
I honestly think, I'm not going to lie, some of the social media teams for these teams, like Georgia's been killing it, Florida's been killing it, Texas has been killing it. All these teams are actually putting these players on blast, and I absolutely love it. The Mike Dub segment that they did with her, fantastic. That the USTA then did for their own, fantastic.
No comment on that slight dig, but yes, I very much agree.
Okay, so while I still have you, before I have to scramble to work, in the last rankings, in the final rankings, who do you think was snubbed, and who do you think, would you change anything?
First of all, and I love him, but I've said this to his face, so I don't mind calling him out now. In the last interview I did with him, Tim Russell called me both a blogster and a Monday morning quarterback within a 5-minute segment. And I was like, all right. Yeah, it's like, tell me how you really feel, Tim. Yeah, it's like, Jesus.
Way to be nice.
Yeah, it was just very funny. No, he meant it lovingly, which was the key thing. We'll see. The ITA rankings have North Carolina 2. The tennis the USTA rankings have North Carolina 3. With all due respect to Pepperdine, you lose 1-4-3 match to Pepperdine in a match where you drop the doubles point and your number 2 doubles team ends up number 2 in the rankings. North Carolina belongs in the number 2 position. All of the Big
Ten schools. For the women or for the
no, for the women. For the women. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry. I'm starting with the women. I think I think Ohio State and Michigan are underranked. Those are both top 10 teams. I think Stanford's a little underranked. They were better than number 23. Again, they played Pepperdine really damn close, and Pepperdine ended up making the final. It's funny because all season long, it was like, is the ACC really this good on the women's side? The answer was yes.
Yes.
And like for them to
That's
have –
a guarantee. I don't understand how you don't – ACC, just like in basketball, is a power conference, at least for tennis.
Stupid good on the women's side.
Yes.
On the men's side, USC's better than 10. Like I know, like, come on.
Well, after that run, yes.
Yeah, come on.
They could have been 8, maybe 7.
100%. I'd throw them up there. Illinois ending at 17 is a crime. Like, I know they
played well. Didn't they win the Big Ten?
They won the Big Ten. They lost 3 times all season long. Meanwhile, freaking, 17-10 South Carolina, who was damn good. Like,
they are good.
Don't get me wrong here.
They are good.
But I would take Illinois in that match 10 times out of 10.
Where did South Carolina finish again? Were they 12?
Round of 16. They lost 4-3 to Texas.
Okay.
And it was a fun match, too.
Where'd they finish in the rankings?
They finished number 13, which, it would be fine.
I would have. Yeah.
Illinois was above them. Like, I think Georgia at 9, respectfully, is a little high. Like, I know they beat North Carolina, but that was not the same North Carolina team as the start of the season. They were so banged up all year long. I think the SEC was a little still over-respected. Like, Tennessee and Florida 1, Tennessee 4, those make sense. Texas at 3 is scary, considering they bring back everyone as well, but they do belong there.
Shout out Elliot Spizzeri, 203.
Yeah, he was excellent.
Kentucky finished 15?
Yeah, sorry. That's a hair high. It is a hair high. There again, all of these SEC teams are a hair high. Meanwhile, there's not a single Big Ten team in the top 10. Like, Ohio State was not good in Orlando, but
no, they were not. I was about to say.
Yeah, it's not Illinois' fault that they played Florida first round. So
yeah,
Illinois is the one that stands out to me. Oh, Michigan as well. Is Michigan even ranked at the end of this season? Michigan's number 49.
You're the guy. You're the Michigan guy. You should know.
King of college tennis, according to you.
Yes.
Look, I'm going to list some teams Michigan's ranked below. 8-11 Miami of Florida, 12-13 LSU, 10-15 Arkansas, 10-9 Memphis, who was great this year, but sorry, that's ridiculous. 14-12 Alabama, 11-15 Oklahoma. What are we doing here? Like, come on. Like, I know there are bonuses on the line for all these coaches, and it doesn't really matter unless you're top 10, but like, yeah, those are a joke. And hopefully next year with a full season of play, these end-of-year rankings will not be like this. It was the men's side more than the women's that got screwed.
Yeah, I agree.
The women's ended up evening out.
I agree. The women's was more balanced towards the end. The men, you could have switched everyone. That's the difference.
Yeah, Michigan, Arizona, and Kentucky were 3 of the top 20 teams in the nation. Yeah. And all 3 of them ended up in the same region. Like,
yeah, that – the draw ceremony must be very, very annoying.
Yeah, to say the least, yes.
Just like in tour draw ceremony, you never know what's going on behind the scenes.
And like both, exactly, like both, they're behind closed doors. Exactly.
Let's not make it public, for sure. But
100%.
Alex, I really appreciate you coming on, and I really do appreciate your contribute to college tennis and everything. It's always a pleasure to have you here, and feel free to check out every podcast that you have. I feel like you have a billion, but you have Mini Break, the interviews podcast. What else am I missing?
Great Shot podcast.
Great Shot podcast.
Find it all on our website, crackedrackets.com. And by the way, I need to reciprocate the favor. It's time for you to make your Cracked Rackets podcast debut. It's a crime that you have not. So yes, I expect an invitation. Look, we got 2 weeks of French Open to play with. That's a lot of time. Yeah, exactly. So expect a text from me. Sincerely appreciate you having me. Always a pleasure to see your face.
Thank you, Gruskin. I appreciate it. And everyone take care. Appreciate it, guys.